My beloved child, stop for a moment and give me your attention, because this moment is not as ordinary as it may seem. You may believe you simply came across these words while moving through another busy day, carrying on with your responsibilities and thinking about everything that still needs to be done. But I want you to recognize that there are moments when I interrupt the familiar rhythm of your life because your heart needs to hear something before you move any farther. You have been asking questions you have not always spoken aloud. You have wondered whether I still hear you, whether your prayers have reached me, and whether there is direction ahead when the road has seemed uncertain. You have searched for signs in places where you thought they might appear, and sometimes you have walked away disappointed because the answer did not arrive in the form you expected. But my child, do not assume that silence means absence, and do not believe that every unanswered question has been ignored. There are times when the answer comes quietly, when it enters your life without spectacle, when it reaches you in a moment you almost overlook because you were expecting something more dramatic. This is why I ask you to become still enough to recognize what is happening now. You are not here by accident. You are not listening by coincidence. Something within you has been searching for reassurance, direction, and confirmation. And I have brought your attention here so you can remember that I have never stopped guiding you. Think about the roads that did not open when you wanted them to. Think about the plans that changed unexpectedly, the delays that frustrated you, the opportunities that disappeared, and the situations that forced you to move in a different direction. At the time, many of those moments may have seemed meaningless. You may have wondered why things could not simply unfold according to your plans. Yet you can rarely see the entire road while standing in the middle of it. What feels like an interruption today may become protection tomorrow. What seems like a delay may be positioning. What appears to be an inconvenient change may quietly redirect your steps towards something you cannot yet recognize. I do not ask you to understand everything immediately. I ask you to remain open enough to believe that your life is not made up only of random moments, disconnected from one another. There are patterns you cannot yet see and purposes that become clear only with time. You have spent many days moving quickly from one concern to the next, and the noise around you has often made it difficult to notice the gentle ways I have been drawing your attention back to what matters. You have responsibilities, conversations, decisions, expectations, and distractions competing for your focus. The world continually tells you to hurry, to react, to keep moving, to consume more, and to think about what comes next before you have understood what is happening now. But some of the most important moments in your life will require you to stop. They will require you to listen instead of rushing ahead. They will require you to recognize that not everything valuable arrives loudly. Sometimes I speak through a quiet conviction that refuses to leave your heart. Sometimes I place the same truth before you again and again until you finally notice it. Sometimes I close one direction because continuing down that road would take you farther from where you need to be. Sometimes I allow circumstances to slow you down because you have been moving too quickly to hear what I have been trying to show you. Do not despise these interruptions. Do not automatically label them failures simply because they were not part of your original plan. Your perspective is limited to the moment you are living, but I see beyond the moment. I see where every road leads, what every decision can produce, and what must be prepared before certain doors are opened. This is why trust becomes necessary when understanding is incomplete. You have asked me for guidance, but guidance does not always mean receiving a complete map of everything ahead. Often, it means receiving enough light for the next step and enough peace to know that you do not have to control every step that follows. There are things you have been trying to solve through constant thinking, as though one more hour of worry might finally produce certainty. But not every answer is discovered by thinking harder. Some answers become visible when your spirit grows quiet enough to recognize what has already been placed before you. My child, I want you to understand the significance of being present. Do not live so far ahead in your imagination that you miss what I am showing you today. Do not remain so trapped in what happened yesterday that you fail to notice the direction appearing now. This moment deserves your attention because it may contain something you have been asking me to reveal. You have prayed for clarity, And sometimes clarity begins not with a dramatic announcement, but with a simple realization. You are still being led. You have not been abandoned to figure everything out alone. Your path has not slipped beyond my awareness. Even when circumstances seemed scattered, I remained present. Even when plans changed without warning, I was not confused. Even when you could not understand why certain doors remained closed, I could already see what existed beyond them. There is freedom in accepting that you do not need to force every answer before its proper time. Your responsibility is to remain attentive, to stay willing to listen, and to move with wisdom when direction becomes clear. So receive this moment for what it is, an invitation to become aware again. Slow the racing thoughts. Release the demand to understand everything immediately. Notice what has been stirring quietly within you. Remember the questions you have been asking, the direction you have been seeking, and the repeated sense that something in your life is asking you to pay closer attention. I am not asking you to predict the future. I am asking you to recognize my presence in the present. Before you move forward, remember this truth. Your life is not beyond my sight. Your path is not without direction. And this moment has arrived as a reminder that I am still near, still guiding, and still able to lead you one step at a time. My beloved child, I want you to hear this clearly. I have seen what you have been carrying in silence. I have noticed the weight you learned to hide behind ordinary conversations, the exhaustion you concealed behind a smile, and the thoughts you kept to yourself because you did not know how to explain them without feeling misunderstood. There have been days when you continued doing everything expected of you while something inside you felt tired beyond words. You answered people, completed responsibilities, showed up when you were needed, and tried to appear strong. Yet beneath that strength were questions, fears, and emotions you rarely allowed anyone to see. I saw all of it. I saw the moments when you wanted someone to ask how you were really doing, not as a formality, but because they genuinely wanted to understand. I saw the times when you almost opened your heart and then stopped because you feared becoming a burden or believed no one would fully understand what you were trying to say. I saw the nights when the world became quiet, but your mind did not, when thoughts moved through you faster than you could calm them, and when worries that seemed manageable during the day became heavier in the darkness. I saw the tears you wiped away before anyone could notice. I saw the moments when you stared into the distance, wondering how much longer you could keep carrying everything without rest. You may have believed that because no one around you recognized the depth of your struggle, perhaps no one truly knew, but you were never unseen by me. Not one private tear escaped my attention. Not one silent prayer disappeared into emptiness. Not one moment of fear, confusion, loneliness, or discouragement went unnoticed. I know the thoughts you have been afraid to say aloud. I know the questions you have asked yourself about your worth. I know how certain disappointments caused you to wonder whether something was wrong with you, whether you were difficult to love, whether you had failed too many times, or whether your past had somehow placed you beyond the reach of grace. There have been moments when you looked at your mistakes more closely than you looked at my love. You remembered what you should have done differently, what you wish you had never said, the choices you regret, the opportunities you lost, and the times you disappointed yourself. You may have replayed those memories until they became accusations in your mind, convincing you that you must somehow earn your way back into my affection. But my child, my love for you has never depended on your ability to live without mistakes. I am not standing at a distance, waiting for you to become flawless before I draw near. I know every part of your story, including the parts you would rather hide, and I have not turned away. Your failures did not surprise me. Your weaknesses did not cause me to abandon you. Your moments of doubt did not erase my care for you. I know you more completely than any human being ever could, and still I call you beloved. You do not have to pretend with me. You do not have to arrange your emotions into perfect words before you speak. You do not have to hide your confusion because you think faith means never feeling uncertain. You can come to me tired, you can come disappointed. You can come with questions you cannot answer and feelings you cannot organize. I am not frightened by the truth of what is happening inside you. I would rather receive your honest heart than watch you exhaust yourself trying to appear stronger than you feel. There have also been wounds caused by people whose acceptance mattered deeply to you. Some did not understand your heart. Some judged you without knowing everything you had endured. Some made you feel that your value depended on what you could provide, how useful you were, how well you performed, or how closely you met their expectations. Others may have walked away when you hoped they would stay, leaving you to wonder whether their departure proved something painful about you. But another person's inability to recognize your value does not determine your worth. Their distance does not make you unlovable. Their misunderstanding does not rewrite who you are. Their rejection does not have the authority to define you. I do not measure you by the opinions that wounded you. I do not call you by the names your disappointments gave you. I call you mine. I see beyond the defenses you built after being hurt. I see the tenderness you tried to protect because experience taught you that openness can sometimes lead to pain. I see how carefully you have learned to hold certain parts of yourself because you are afraid they will be mishandled again. And I want you to know that you do not need to hide those places from me. I already know them, and I meet them with compassion rather than condemnation. When loneliness tells you that no one understands, remember that I know the language of every unspoken ache. When shame tells you to withdraw, remember that I am not approaching you with accusation. When your past tells you that you are disqualified, remember that my love has not withdrawn from you. When you feel invisible in a room full of people, remember that my attention has never left you. I have seen the effort it took simply to continue on certain days. I have seen the courage hidden inside choices that no one else celebrated. I have seen you keep moving when your heart felt exhausted, and I have heard prayers so quiet that they were barely more than thoughts. You may not always feel my nearness in the way you expect, but my presence does not depend on your emotions. There were moments when you assumed that silence meant I had moved away, but I remained near. There were moments when you wondered whether I had forgotten your name, but you were still held in my attention. You have never needed to compete for my notice. You have never needed to prove that your pain is serious enough for me to care. I care because you are my child. So stop measuring my love by how understood you feel by others. Stop assuming that being overlooked by people means you have been overlooked by me. Bring me the parts of yourself that are tired of pretending. Bring me the fears you have hidden, the questions you cannot resolve, the regrets that still trouble you, and the loneliness you have carried quietly. You are seen, you are known, you are loved. You are not standing alone in the hidden places of your life, because even there, my presence has remained with you. My beloved child, now that you know I have seen every hidden struggle, every quiet tear, and every burden you carried when no one else understood, I want you to understand something deeper. None of what you endured was meaningless. I know there were moments when you asked why I allowed certain things to happen, why I did not remove the pain sooner, why some prayers seemed unanswered, and why you had to walk through seasons that felt far heavier than you believed you could bear. You wondered why people you trusted disappointed you, why doors you prayed would open remained closed, why relationships changed, why plans collapsed, and why relief sometimes seemed farther away the more earnestly you sought it. There were times when you interpreted difficulty as evidence that I had stepped away. But my child, what looked like abandonment was not abandonment. What felt like silence was not indifference. What appeared to be an ending was often a place where something within you was being formed that could not have been developed through comfort alone. I do not delight in your suffering. I did not watch your heart break without compassion. And I did not ignore the nights when you wondered whether you had enough strength to continue. But I want you to see that pain did not have the final authority over what those experiences became. The things that wounded you were not allowed to remain only wounds. I have been using them to deepen you, strengthen you, and prepare you in ways you could not recognize while you were still walking through them. Think about who you were before some of these battles began. There were truths you understood only in theory, lessons you could repeat but had never lived, and strengths inside you that had never been tested. You may once have believed that faith meant never feeling afraid, But now you know that faith can also mean continuing forward while fear is present. You may once have thought strength meant never becoming tired, but now you understand that true strength sometimes means rising again after admitting how exhausted you are. You may once have believed compassion was simply kindness, but the pain you experienced has taught you how to recognize suffering that hides behind someone else's smile. The lonely nights gave you sensitivity toward people who feel unseen. The disappointments taught you not to place your entire identity in circumstances that can change. The betrayals taught you the importance of discernment. The delays taught you patience that could not have been learned when everything happened according to your preferred timing. The unanswered questions forced your trust to grow beyond what you could immediately understand. None of this means the pain itself was good, but it means the pain did not get to decide what you would become. What tried to weaken you has often produced depth. What tried to discourage you has revealed endurance. What made you question whether you could keep going has shown you that there was more strength within you than you realized. There were moments when you thought you had reached your limit, yet somehow you continued. There were mornings when you rose after nights you thought would break you. There were situations you believed you would never survive emotionally, yet here you are, still standing. Do not overlook the significance of that. You did not arrive here untouched, but neither did you arrive here defeated. The fire changed you, but it did not consume you. Like gold passing through heat, parts of your life have been refined through pressure. Some things you once depended on have fallen away. Some expectations you once held tightly have been exposed as unreliable. Some attachments had to loosen because they could not accompany you into the person you are becoming. There were people whose departure felt like proof that you were not valuable, but their leaving taught you that your identity could not safely rest in another person's ability to recognize your worth. There were plans that failed and left you feeling lost, but their collapse forced you to discover that your life could still continue when your original picture of the future did not. There were seasons when you had less certainty than you wanted, yet those seasons taught you how to walk without possessing every answer. My child, preparation rarely feels like preparation while you are experiencing it. From inside the struggle, it often feels like delay, confusion, loss, or pressure. Only later do you begin to notice what was being built in you. You recognize that you are slower to panic than you once were. You understand people more deeply. You recognize unhealthy patterns sooner. You know that disappointment can hurt without destroying you. You know that loneliness can be endured without surrendering your identity. You know that a closed door does not automatically mean your life is over. You have developed a different kind of strength, one that is quieter and less dependent on everything around you going well. This is why I tell you not to despise the difficult chapters simply because you would never choose to relive them. You do not have to call the pain beautiful to acknowledge that something meaningful grew through it. The tears taught you, the waiting shaped you, the disappointments revealed you, the pressure exposed what needed healing, what needed releasing, and what needed strengthening. Even the seasons when you felt spiritually dry created a deeper hunger for my presence, because they showed you how empty temporary things become when you ask them to carry the weight only I can carry. You have asked why I did not shield you from every hardship, but there are dangers you never saw, paths you never entered, and consequences that never reached you, because my hand was already protecting you in ways you could not measure. Yes, you walked through fire, but you did not walk through it alone. You were tested, but you were not forgotten. You were wounded, but you were not abandoned. You were pressed, but you were not erased. And now I want you to stop looking at your past only as evidence of what hurt you. Begin to recognize what it produced within you. You are wiser because you have learned what appearances cannot teach. You are more compassionate because you know what hidden pain feels like. You are more discerning because experience has shown you what words alone cannot reveal. You are stronger because you discovered that weakness does not mean the end. Your story is not defined only by what happened to you. It is also being shaped by what you became while walking through it. Nothing you endured was wasted, my child. Every difficult season has carried something forward, and what once looked like meaningless suffering has become preparation for the person you are now becoming. My beloved child, you have carried certain burdens for so long that some of them have begun to feel like part of who you are. But I want you to understand that what has held you captive does not have the right to define your future. There are chains that cannot be seen with human eyes, yet they can shape your decisions, your relationships, your confidence, and the way you see yourself. Fear has whispered that something will go wrong if you move forward. Rejection has told you that you are not worthy of being chosen. Insecurity has convinced you to question your abilities, even after you survived situations you once believed would defeat you. Anxiety has kept your mind racing ahead into circumstances that have not even happened, forcing you to live tomorrow's worries before tomorrow has arrived. Loneliness has sometimes persuaded you that you are walking through life without anyone truly understanding the depth of what you carry. But my child, these voices are not the final authority over you. You have listened to them long enough. You have allowed them to occupy places in your thoughts that were never meant to belong to them, and now I am calling you to recognize them for what they are. Burdens that can be released, not identities you must continue carrying. Fear has been one of the strongest chains because it rarely announces itself openly. Sometimes it disguises itself as caution. Sometimes it convinces you to remain where you are because what is familiar feels safer than risking disappointment. It tells you not to try because you might fail, not to trust because you might be hurt, not to speak because you might be misunderstood, and not to hope because hope might end in another disappointment. Fear tries to make your past the blueprint for your future. It points to everything that went wrong before and tells you the same thing will happen again. But you are not required to build tomorrow around yesterday's wounds. What happened before may have taught you wisdom, but it does not have permission to imprison you. You can remember without remaining bound. You can learn without becoming afraid of living. You can move carefully without surrendering your courage. I have not called you to a life ruled by constant dread. You were never meant to make every choice from the question, what if everything falls apart? There is another question you must learn to ask. What if I no longer allow fear to decide for me? Rejection has also left marks deeper than you often admit. There were moments when someone's decision not to choose you became something you turned against yourself. You wondered what was missing in you, what you could have done differently, or why your best efforts were not enough to make someone stay, understand, appreciate, or value you. Slowly, you began measuring yourself through the reactions of other people. Their approval made you feel secure, and their distance made you question your worth. But my beloved, you cannot build a stable identity on changing human opinions. People can misunderstand you. People can withdraw for reasons that have little to do with your value. People can fail to recognize what is good simply because they are unable or unwilling to see it. Their rejection may hurt, but it does not become truth simply because it hurts deeply. You are not less valuable because someone failed to value you. You are not less worthy because someone chose another direction. You do not need to spend the rest of your life trying to prove yourself to people who made you doubt what I have already established about you. Let their voices grow quieter. Let the need for universal acceptance loosen its grip. You do not have to be chosen by everyone in order to know that your life matters. There is also the chain of inadequacy, the persistent feeling that you are never quite enough. You compare your progress with someone else's success. You look at what others have accomplished and then examine everything you believe is still missing from your own life. You notice your weaknesses more quickly than your growth. You remember your mistakes more vividly than the courage it took to recover from them. You have sometimes placed impossible expectations on yourself and then condemned yourself for failing to meet them. But I want you to stop speaking to yourself as though your imperfections cancel your worth. Growth does not require self-rejection. You can acknowledge areas that need change without declaring yourself a failure. You can make mistakes without turning them into permanent labels. You can still be learning and still possess value. Another chain has been the fear of not having enough. Financial uncertainty has produced nights of worry and calculations that seem to continue without end. You have looked ahead and imagined every possible shortage before it happened. You have feared losing stability, feared unexpected expenses, and feared that one setback might undo everything you worked to build. These concerns may be real, but they do not deserve complete ownership of your mind. Worry cannot guarantee security. It only forces you to experience suffering before you know whether the feared circumstance will ever arrive. Learn to separate responsible preparation from relentless anxiety. Do what wisdom requires, but do not surrender your peace to possibilities you cannot control. And my child, loneliness must also lose the authority it has carried over your heart. You have felt alone even while surrounded by people because physical presence does not always create understanding. There were moments when you wished someone could see beyond your words and recognize what you were unable to explain. Yet loneliness has sometimes made you believe that isolation is permanent, that meaningful connection is no longer possible, or that you must settle for relationships that drain you simply because you fear having no one. Do not allow loneliness to drive you back toward what repeatedly wounds you. Being temporarily alone is not the same as being abandoned. Silence is not proof that you have been forgotten. You do not need to trade your peace for companionship that requires you to diminish yourself. These chains have influenced you long enough: fear, rejection, inadequacy, anxiety, and loneliness. Their power begins to weaken when you stop accepting every thought they produce as truth. You are learning to recognize what has controlled you, and recognition is the beginning of freedom. You do not have to obey every fearful thought. You do not have to chase every person who withdraws. You do not have to prove your worth through exhaustion. You do not have to predict every outcome before taking another step. You do not have to remain emotionally imprisoned by experiences that have already ended. My beloved child, what held you yesterday does not have unlimited authority over tomorrow. The chains are loosening because you are beginning to see them clearly, and as you release their hold on your mind and heart, you are making room to walk forward with greater courage, greater steadiness, and a freedom that no longer depends on the circumstances behind you. My beloved child, now that you are beginning to release what has held your heart captive, I want you to understand what I desire to place where fear, rejection, anxiety, and emptiness once lived. Freedom is not only about what leaves your life, it is also about what begins to grow in the space that has been cleared. I am bringing peace where your mind has known constant turmoil, hope where disappointment taught you to expect the worst, provision where uncertainty made you afraid of tomorrow, healing where wounds remain tender, and restoration where you thought too much had been lost to recover. There have been areas of your life that felt barren for so long that you stopped expecting anything beautiful to grow there again. You learned to live around certain disappointments. You adjusted to unfinished dreams, damaged relationships, closed doors, delayed plans, and circumstances that seemed unwilling to change. At some point, you may even have told yourself that accepting less was easier than hoping again. But my child, do not confuse a long season with a permanent condition. What has remained unchanged for years is not beyond my reach. What appeared finished to you may still contain possibilities you cannot yet see. I am the God who brings life into places that look empty, renews hope after disappointment, and creates paths where human understanding sees only limitations. This new season begins within you before it becomes visible around you. Peace is one of the first things I am restoring. For too long, your mind has carried conversations that already ended, problems that have not yet happened, and questions whose answers are not yet available. You have tried to anticipate every possibility because uncertainty made you feel unsafe. But I am teaching you a different way to live. Peace does not mean every problem disappears at once. It means the problem no longer controls the atmosphere inside you. It means you can face an unanswered question without allowing it to consume every thought. It means you can encounter uncertainty without immediately assuming disaster. My presence is becoming a place of rest within you, a reminder that you are not required to solve your entire future tonight. What you cannot control, place into my hands. What you can responsibly do, do with wisdom. Then allow your heart to rest. I am also restoring your confidence in provision. I know how often concerns about money, responsibilities, bills, and unexpected needs have occupied your thoughts. I know the fear that rises when what you have seems smaller than what you need. Yet I want you to remember that your current circumstances are not the full measure of what is possible. Opportunities can appear from directions you did not anticipate. Doors can open that you never knew existed. Resources can arrive through connections, ideas, work, and circumstances that were not visible when you first began worrying. Do not allow temporary lack to convince you that lack will define the rest of your life. Continue to act wisely, work faithfully, and manage what is already in your hands. But do not let fear become your master. I have not forgotten what you need. There are also wounds that require restoration. Wounds left not only by events but by words, disappointments, betrayals, and losses that change the way you see yourself and others. Some wounds remained hidden because you became skilled at functioning while hurting. You moved forward, but part of your heart remained attached to what happened. My child, healing does not require you to pretend that the wound never existed. It means the wound no longer controls the way you live. It means remembering without being pulled back into the same pain every time. It means learning from what happened without carrying bitterness into every new relationship. It means allowing your heart to become open to goodness again without abandoning the wisdom you gained. I am restoring what pain tried to take from you. Your ability to trust wisely, to hope again, to receive love without immediately expecting loss, and to believe that one painful chapter does not determine every chapter that follows. Some relationships may also experience renewal. Where misunderstanding can be resolved, I can create room for honest conversation. Where distance has grown, I can soften hearts. Where restoration is healthy and possible, what was broken may be repaired in ways you once considered unlikely. Yet restoration does not always mean returning everything to exactly what it was. Sometimes restoration means giving you peace about what cannot return. Sometimes it means replacing what was lost with something healthier. Sometimes it means showing you that what you were desperately trying to recover belonged to an earlier season and that your future requires something different. Trust me enough not to dictate the exact form restoration must take. I see what will strengthen your life, not merely what will satisfy a temporary longing. And there are dreams you buried because disappointment convinced you they were unrealistic. There were goals you stopped speaking about because too much time had passed. There were possibilities you quietly released because you believed the opportunity had gone forever. I want you to look again, not with desperation, but with renewed openness. Not every old dream is meant to return, but some desires were not dead. They were waiting for the right season, greater maturity, better preparation, or a different path than the one you first imagined. Opportunities you thought had passed may reappear in another form. New doors may accomplish what old doors never could. You may discover that delay did not destroy your future. It prepared you to enter it differently. My beloved, restoration is already changing the way you see what lies ahead. You no longer have to interpret every delay as denial, every ending as failure, or every empty place as permanent loss. The season ahead is not simply about receiving more things. It is about becoming able to receive what is good without carrying the same fear that once prevented you from enjoying it. Peace will become more familiar. Hope will become stronger. Faith will rise where disappointment had weakened it. What felt dry will begin to show signs of life. What seemed beyond repair may take on a new form. What you believed was permanently lost may be replaced by something that carries greater wisdom, stability, and purpose. Lift your heart, my child. You are not being called back into the life you had before the struggle. You are being led forward with everything the struggle taught you. The barren places will not remain barren forever. The story is still moving, and where you once saw only endings, you are beginning to recognize the first signs of renewal. My beloved child, as you move forward from everything this season has taught you, I want you to understand that the greatest danger is not always what happens while the pressure is at its strongest. Sometimes, the greater danger comes afterward, when the storm begins to lift and you are tempted to return to the same habits, the same patterns, and the same ways of thinking that once left you empty. You have learned too much to go back to living unaware. You have seen how easily your peace can be disturbed when every voice is allowed equal access to your heart, when every fearful thought is treated as truth, and when the noise around you becomes louder than the quiet conviction I have been forming within you. That is why I am asking you now to guard what you have received. Do not treat this season of awakening as a passing emotion. Do not allow a few difficult days to convince you that nothing has changed. Growth is not proven by never feeling fear again. It is revealed when fear appears and you no longer surrender your direction to it. Faith is not demonstrated by never having questions. It is revealed when questions arise and you refuse to let uncertainty erase everything you already know. There will still be moments when old thoughts return. Doubt may whisper that you imagined your progress, that nothing meaningful is happening, or that you will eventually find yourself exactly where you were before. When those thoughts come, recognize them without allowing them to lead you. You do not have to follow every idea that passes through your mind. You do not have to build a future around every fearful possibility. You have learned to distinguish between a warning that produces wisdom and a fear that produces paralysis. Continue practicing that discernment. The enemy works through doubt because doubt can weaken what has been received before it has time to take root. He will tell you that you are still too flawed, too inconsistent, too far behind, or too damaged to walk confidently into what lies ahead. He will remind you of mistakes you have already confronted and try to make you believe that your past still has the authority to cancel your future. But do not give those accusations more power than the truth I have spoken over you. You do not need to reopen every case that grace has already settled. You do not need to keep returning emotionally to places from which you have already begun to move forward. Learn the lesson, carry the wisdom, and leave behind the condemnation. Distraction can be just as dangerous as doubt because it rarely feels dangerous at first. It enters quietly through constant busyness, endless scrolling, unnecessary arguments, comparison, entertainment without boundaries, and the pressure to remain available to everyone at all times. None of these things may appear significant by themselves, but when they continually fill your mind, they can leave no room for stillness. A heart that is constantly crowded struggles to recognize direction. A mind that never becomes quiet begins reacting to whatever voice is loudest. This is why you must become intentional about where your attention goes. Your attention is valuable. What you repeatedly focus on eventually shapes your inner life. If you continually feed fear, fear grows. If you continually rehearse resentment, resentment grows. If you continually compare yourself with others, dissatisfaction grows. But when you intentionally return your attention to what is true, wise, peaceful, and worthy, your inner life becomes more stable. Guard your mornings before the world begins making demands. Guard the moments when your mind is tired and most vulnerable to negative thoughts. Guard the conversations that repeatedly pull you back into bitterness. Guard what you consume when no one is watching. Guard what you permit to occupy your imagination. This is not about living afraid of the world. It is about living awake within it. You cannot control every voice that speaks around you, but you can decide which voices are allowed to become authorities within you. You cannot prevent every distraction from appearing, but you can choose whether it deserves your attention. You cannot stop every person from misunderstanding your journey, but you can refuse to surrender your peace trying to convince everyone that your decisions are valid. There may be people who do not understand why you are changing. Some may prefer the version of you that had fewer boundaries, questioned yourself more easily, or remained available even when you were exhausted. Do not become bitter toward them, but do not abandon your growth to make others comfortable. You can love people without giving them unlimited influence. You can forgive without returning to unhealthy patterns. You can listen without accepting every opinion. You can remain humble without allowing others to define you. Let your life become quieter where quietness protects clarity. You do not have to respond to every criticism, correct every misunderstanding, or defend every choice. Some things become stronger when they are protected from constant explanation. Your relationship with me must also become more than something you reach for only when life becomes unbearable. Do not wait until another crisis forces you into stillness. Seek me when things are peaceful. Speak with me when there is no emergency. Make room for gratitude when nothing dramatic is happening. Learn to recognize my presence in ordinary days, because a faith built only around emergencies will always depend on emergencies to feel alive. I want your trust to become steady, rooted not merely in what happens around you, but in the relationship being formed within you. There will be days when you feel deeply encouraged and days when you feel very little. Do not measure truth by emotion alone. Feelings change with fatigue, circumstances, conversations, memories, and countless other influences. What you know must sometimes carry you when what you feel becomes uncertain. When your emotions are unsettled, return to what has already been made clear. Remember what you have learned. Remember how far you have come. Remember that temporary confusion does not erase lasting growth. And when you stumble, do not turn one difficult moment into a reason to abandon the entire journey. Correct your direction and continue. My child, remain awake. Protect your peace without becoming fearful. Protect your heart without becoming closed, and protect your faith without becoming rigid. Let wisdom guide what you allow close to you. Let discernment determine what deserves your attention. Let patience keep you from reacting too quickly, and let trust keep you moving when you cannot see everything ahead. You do not need to return to the person you were simply because the old road feels familiar. Familiarity is not always safety, and comfort is not always peace. Keep moving forward with what you have learned. The noise may continue, doubt may occasionally return, and distraction may still compete for your attention, but none of those things have to govern you. Stay near to me, remain attentive, and carry this truth with you. What has been formed within you is worth protecting. Do not allow temporary pressure to steal permanent growth. Do not allow old voices to reclaim authority they have already begun to lose. Walk forward with a guarded heart, a clear mind, and a steady spirit, knowing that you are no longer moving blindly. You have learned to listen. You have learned to recognize what weakens your peace, and now you must choose, day after day, to live according to what you have received.